Hi, this is Scott Gietler from Bluewater Photo, and today we are going to talk about the Nauticam housing for the Nikon D500 crop sensor camera. First, I'm going to start with talking a little bit about the Nikon D500. Now, I'm a longtime Nikon shooter, and I've been using this camera a lot the last week for various subjects: wide angle, macro, birds, pelicans, sea lions that live outside my window. Let me tell you what this camera is all about. This camera is built for speed, it's built for behavior, it's built for shooting low light. This camera can do 10 frames a second, which is quite awesome. It just keeps going and going and going. So if you're shooting an action, the difference between this and 4 or 5 frames a second is huge for really capturing that one spot, that one moment you want to capture. Also, this camera has good dynamic range at very high ISOs, like ISO 5,000, 10,000, 25,000. No problem. The noise cleans up nicely, and you can actually get some very usable images in low light, which is nice. Two other things about this camera that really distinguishes it from other Nikon models is the autofocus. The autofocus is exceptional. It has a lot of autofocus points, and just shooting some moving objects, some fast-moving birds that have been outside my house in the marina, just putting it on auto mode and using all the autofocus points, it's been locking on really nicely, and all my shots have been sharp. It also does 4K video, and it has a lot of really nice high-end features for the 4K video in terms of things like auto ISO and auto dynamic range compensation. So if you're a serious video shooter, I think a lot of these features for producing professional level video are going to be really nice. Now, let's take a look at this housing. I've been using this housing for a little while the last few days, and I like it a lot. Let me start with some of the key features of this housing. First, it's quite easy to open and close. Nauticam has 2 latches, and they open right up quite easily. The camera tray fits this camera nice, and it slides right in. And some housings you sort of have to fiddle with the camera and really align it nicely, and this goes in no problem. And then I lock it in. Now, the lock doesn't feel like it's locked. It was a soft push that locks it, but if I go to open it, yeah, it's sort of easy to open, so you just want to really make sure that this is locked when you put your camera in there. And I put the back of the housing on, and some of the older Nauticam housings, it took a minute to really align the back of the housing. This one I've had no problems. Every time I just put it on and I close it, and it's locked. It's on really securely. So that part of the housing I really like. Like all Nauticam housings, it's really simple to put the port on and off, and let me show you how to do that. I'm going to take this camera out one more time. You open the port latch, push the port on, and close it. So look how simple it is to change a port. Open the latch, take it off, put on the new port, and close it. And when you close it, it does an internal bayonet rotation, which locks the port in. So it's really nice, and it means that you can quickly and easily change your ports and lenses on boats without worrying that you have to open up the whole housing. So it's really nice. So let's put this camera back in. Again, goes in nicely. Everyone can see the back of the housing. By the way, a little tip: when you put your Nikon D500 camera on the tray, you do have to lift up the LCD a little bit in order to get it over the lip of the back of the tray. So if it's not going on, just remember to lift that up a little bit, and you will be good to go. So now I'm going to close this, and we're all set. Let's take a look at some of the features and controls of this housing. First of all, this housing comes standard with a flash trigger. Flash triggers are awesome. Why are they awesome? Because you don't have to use an electronic sync cable, which can be very hard to maintain. It can get corroded, it can leak. You can use fiber optics, but fiber optics traditionally have been slow. You have to wait for the camera's internal flash to recycle. So with a flash trigger, you get the best of both worlds. The camera will recycle the flash very quickly. You can shoot, but it goes through fiber optics, so it's not going through a hole in the housing. So the flash trigger is actually included with the price of the housing, which is really nice. So here's the fiber optic ports. You screw your fiber optic cable on the top, and just make sure that the style of fiber optic cable is the style that screws on, not the standard CNC style. It comes with 3 different bulkheads, 2 M16 bulkheads and an M14 bulkhead. So you can plug in an external monitor, a video recorder, a sync cord, and the optional vacuum check system valve, which I highly recommend getting if you're going to get this housing for peace of mind. It's really nice to be able to check the pressure and make sure that your housing is airtight before you go underwater. Looking at some of the controls, I've been using all the controls, and I've been really pleasantly surprised at how well all the controls have worked. Every time that I put the housing in, there has not been any misalignment issues. My favorite thing is that the info switch is right here at my thumb. So when I press the info lever right at my thumb, I can see my aperture, my shutter speed, my ISO. And changing the shutter speed is effortless with my thumb. I just stretch my finger and I can change the shutter speed. The only thing that's really difficult to change on this housing is the ISO. If I push the ISO lever, it's a little difficult to actually also change the ISO because you sort of have to use 2 hands or contort a little bit, but I don't consider that a big deal. Changing the modes is really easy in this housing. If you want to change from shutter priority to aperture priority to manual, you just press a mode button, push it down, and change the mode. And if you want to change from like low speed shooting to high speed shooting, I would just use this dial right here. It's just one-handed operation. And now I'm at 10 frames a second. Speaking of fast shooting, a lot of the reviews talk about a 200 shot buffer. It's not actually accurate that it has such a large buffer. It has about a 29 shot buffer if you're shooting raw. What it can do is it can write up to 200 raw files up to a high-speed card and keep up with the speed of the card if the card is fast enough. So if you have a slow card, it's not like you can shoot 200, it's going to fill up the buffer of the camera and then write to the card. After it takes about 20-some raw shots, it's going to need to write. So if you have a slow card, you'll get 2 or 3 seconds of high-speed shooting, in which for most action situations is more than enough anyway, so it's not really going to be a bottleneck. The D500 camera does have dual card slots. It has an SD card slot and a new high-speed card slot for 4K video. So you may have to make an additional purchase if you want to use both card slots, which I think you should for redundancy. So like I said, all the controls are well placed and work really well. One nice improvement that I really appreciate is that it's very easy to change now from autofocus to manual mode on the left side of the camera. In fact, I think some of the older versions of this housing didn't even support this switch. So it's nice to see that because I use it a lot underwater, and also changing the focus mode is quite effortless with your left finger here, going between, say, single point 3D focus mode like that, which I also do a lot underwater. Last but not least, I want to talk about ports and lenses. Some of my favorite lenses to use with the D500 is the 60mm macro lens for macro, the 105 VR macro for small fish, and super macro with a good strong wet diopter, like the Bluewater +7 macro lens, a Sub-C +10, or the Nauticam super macro converter. For wide angle, for close focus wide angle coral reefs, divers, the Takina 10 to 17 millimeter fisheye is definitely the way to go. If I was going to a place like Cocos or Galapagos or Socorro, I would want to bring a wide angle zoom lens like the Nikon 10 to 24. And if you want to shoot mid-range, then the Sigma 17 to 70 HSM OS lens is also a really nice choice. The housing does not include a port, so for the macro lenses I talked about, you're going to be purchasing a flat port that has a flat front to it, like that, and that flat glass at the front actually gives you additional magnification, which you want for macro. For wide angle, you're going to want to get a dome port. For the fisheye lens, I recommend a nice small 4-inch glass dome port so you can get really nice and close to your subjects and pull those strobes in. For using a wide angle zoom lens like the Nikon 10 to 24 or the Sigma 10 to 20, you're going to need a larger dome port, like an 8-inch dome port for sharper corners. And for over-under split shots, you can use a fisheye or a wide-angle lens, but you do need the larger dome. So an 8 or 9-inch dome works best for split shots. I hope you like this overview of the housing. I think it's going to be very popular. I look forward to using it a lot. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call us at the store or email me at Scott, SCOTT, at bluewaterphotostore.com. And thanks for watching my overview of the Nauticam D500 housing.